Let's consider how net asset value determine the price of mutual funds. Usually, if you want to determine the price of any given mutual fund, you consider its net asset value. And so, how do you price mutual funds? Pricing for mutual funds. So, mutual funds are priced based on their net asset value, which represents the par value of the fund. It represents the par value, the actual value of the fund. Unlike stocks that trade throughout the day, mutual funds are priced once per day after the market, closes. In a typical stock market, you discover that in the case of equity, the price fluctuates. It fluctuates almost every minute, if not seconds. But for mutual fund, it is priced once a day at the closing of the trading day. The net asset value is calculated at this time and becomes the price at which investors can buy or sell mutual funds for that day. The price is calculated once, and that's the price at which investors could buy into the fund on that day. So what exactly is the formula for calculating net asset value? How is it calculated? So the formula here is net asset value is equal to total assets minus total liabilities all over number of shares outstanding. All right, so you look at the total assets of the funds minus its total liability all over the number of shares outstanding. And so we want to consider the key components of this calculation. So in this case, you look at the total assets. So total assets comprises securities and held. Okay. This includes the market value of all stocks, bonds, and other assets in the fund's portfolio. So the value is updated daily based on the closing price of the underlying securities. In all these stocks in the portfolio, they have their individual prices. So usually the portfolio price is determined, by the prices of the individual stocks or assets in the mutual fund portfolio. And of course, it is updated daily. So you have cash and cash equivalents is part of the assets, part of the total assets. So this includes cash reserve, dividend received, as well as interest income. Cash they have at hand, the dividend is received, and also the interest income in the case of bonds. So that's the asset. These factors constitute the asset, the total assets. So we want to consider the total liability. These include any operational expenses from, expenses the fund owes, such as management fees, administrative costs, and other liabilities like pending trades or borrowed funds. So all these items constitute liabilities. Management fees, administrative costs, as well as some other liabilities like borrowed funds. So the other item is number of outstanding shares or number of shares outstanding. That's the total number of shares issued by the mutual fund that investors currently hold, as represent the total number of shares outstanding. That's the number of shares issued by the mutual funds that are held by investors. So let's take a typical example of how to carry out this calculation. In the case where a mutual fund have a total assets of $500 million, this may include the cash and the value of bonds as well as the value of stocks. It amounts to $500 million. Then you also look at the total liability. In a case where the total liabilities is 5 million naira, this may include management fees and other expenditure and other expenses. So, and the funds and share outstanding is 10 million. So based on our formula, you have total asset minus total liability all over number of shares outstanding. So in this case, the total asset is 500 million, and the total liability is 5 million, and the number of shares outstanding is 10 million. So you subtract 500 million minus 5 million all over 10. So you have 495 million all over 10. So you will arrive at 49.50. So the total net asset value, or the par value, or the net asset value per share in that particular fund is $49.50. $49.50. So we want to consider factors affecting net asset values. What are the crucial, critical factors that affect net asset values? You have number one is market fluctuations, because changes in the market value of the securities in the portfolio directly impacts the net asset values. As there is that fluctuation and variation in the prices of securities that constitute the portfolio, the net asset value will also fluctuate. So number two is dividends and interest income. So income earned by the fund increases the net asset value. They earn a dividend, they earn other incomes. It helps to boost the asset value of the net asset value of the fund. Okay. Another factor is distributions. If the fund makes a distribution, example, a dividend or capital gain, the net asset value typically decreases by the amount of the distribution. If it pays out dividends, all right, or if it pays out the capital gain, it will decrease the amount of the distribution. So you have expense deduction. It's a very important component of an important factor that affects the valuation of net asset value. So management fees and other expenses reduces net asset value. So we want to consider why net asset value matters, the importance of net asset value. Number one is buying and selling. Investors purchase or redeem mutual fund shares at the net asset value price. You need to know precisely net asset value, because that's the amount at which you are going to buy, or exit or redeem your mutual fund shares. Then you have performance tracking. Changes in net asset value help investors track the fund performance over time. It is these changes that will help you to be able to accurately track the performance of the fund over time. Then there is dividends and distribution. Net asset value adjustment reflects any dividends or capital gain distributed to shareholders. So any dividend or the capital gain that is distributed to shareholders, is what constitutes dividends and distribution. So in conclusion, the net asset value is a critical matrix in mutual fund investing, representing the per share value of the fund. So understanding how it is calculated help investors make informed decisions about buying, about holding or selling mutual fund shares. So since net asset value is updated daily, it provides a transparent and up-to-date measure of the mutual fund value. This is how you determine the price of a mutual fund. It's very, very straightforward. Compared to the price of stocks, many components come in when you want to calculate the intrinsic value of stock. But for bonds, but for mutual funds, the net asset value is quite straightforward. Total assets minus total liability all over the share outstanding will give you the net asset value, of the mutual funds.